And it's high time India revamps its anti-bribery and anti-corruption laws if it wants to stop the trend of Indian corporates being pulled up in overseas jurisdictions. And that's the warning from Petrus Marais, who's the KPMG's global head of forensics. And here he is in an exclusive chat with ET Now's Ashwin Mohan.
India's got a vibrant economy. The growth over the last 10 years has been enviable. And as we find in many emerging economies, where you have that level of growth, that level of economic development, increased levels of foreign investment, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for regulators to maintain pace with the levels of economic development. And so that gap is inclined to widen.
From a global context, are there any laws, norms or regulations which you think should be introduced into the Indian context to make India more risk averse?
I think it's most probably just a question of time before India looks long and hard at its own anti-bribery and anti-corruption laws and policies, because Indian companies, as they grow and expand globally, are finding themselves subject to legislation, enforcement and penalties in an increasing number of jurisdictions.
Now, as far as India is concerned, it has recently introduced the Landmark Companies Act, and the Companies Act has several provisions, some of which have been taken from or borrowed from overseas jurisdictions, like mandatory whistleblower policy, more onerous liability on the auditors and the independent directors. But do you think this is sufficient in the Indian context in terms of tackling fraud?
The Indian Companies Act is looking to regulate and enforce a raised level of governance. Now that will include things like ethics and integrity management, whistleblowing lines, and I'm interested to see whether there will be protection of whistleblowers in the proposed legislation.